We are blessed, so blessed to have Bobby in our midst. I see heads nodding in the youth corner back there. Yes, Evan, Noah, Longwood, Chanticleer, Ben, all you young people. You're the future, okay? Good. Bobby is from what part of North Carolina? Eastern North Carolina, right? Where he grew up on a farm and developed an interest in native plants. He earned a bachelor's degree in biology from East Carolina, and continued his education with his master's and doctorate in botany and plant physiology at NC State. Sorry about that. He worked as an environmental scientist at Carolina Power and Light Company and has written several articles and books, including, say it with me, Chlorophyll in His Veins, J.C. Ralston, Horticultural Ambassador. The second edition is going to be released this spring. So we're excited to see that. And we have some input from a couple of people in this room we're looking forward to reading as well. The longtime NARGS member, Bobby is past president of the national organization, currently executive secretary, keeping everyone informed, straight up. Yes, Anilia's nodding her head. He is the heart of our Piedmont chapter. And he served many years as our program chair and hosted national meetings in the 90s and 2013 and 2017. So please help me welcome Bobby Ward to the podium.
Thank you, Sandy, for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be here tonight to celebrate our 40th anniversary of the founding of our chapter. I want to say that rock garden interest and rock gardening in this area did not begin with the founding of our chapter in 1985. There are some threads and connections that go back at least from 1985, 5 decades or more. And so I want to spend some time telling you about what those threads and connections are so that will lead up to 85 and then the current day. So bear with me for a minute, if you will. First of all, the first connection I want to mention is Elizabeth Florence. She lived down the road here about 2 miles east of here off of Hillsborough Street on Park Avenue. Now, she came to Raleigh when she was 12 years old and lived in Raleigh until 1948 and developed a very fine garden there. And she wrote about that garden in several magazines and newsletters, society newsletters, as well as one book. And she left Raleigh in 1948 and moved to Charlotte, and she died in 1985. She left a garden there that still exists today under the aegis of the Garden Conservancy and the Winghaven Foundation. The garden in Raleigh does not exist any longer. It was torn down several years ago. And it was occupied by the Farmhouse Fraternity of NC State University. That was a national agricultural fraternity. Now, when she was in Raleigh, she wrote one book. And that book was published in 1942 when she was 38 years old. And the book was published just after Pearl Harbor was bombed. So there was great concern by the University of North Carolina Press and by her that the book wouldn't be popular, wouldn't sell very much because of the war effort going on at that time, thinking that people would rather be growing vegetables rather than rock garden plants or annuals and perennials. The book was very successful, as I said. She gave a speaking tour and enjoyed a lot of applause and accolades from the result of that book. She decided to write another book. The date is not clear when she decided to write it, possibly about 1945. And she worked on that book, and it was going to be about Southern rock gardening. When she died in 1985, the manuscripts that were unpublished by her were given to Duke University Press, because the press, by the time she had died, it had already published another book by her when she was in Charlotte on little bulbs, and that was very popular as well. The editors at Duke University Press decided that the manuscript could be finished, and it was about rock gardening in the South. And they decided they would get someone. I'm sorry, let me back up. she finished the introduction to the book. It was going to be an encyclopedic review of alpine and rock garden plants, A to Z. And in the introduction to the book, this is what Elizabeth Lawrence wrote. Gardening is an art, and rock garden is its purest form. All gardeners become rock gardeners if they garden long enough. And for this reason, it is the most personal of all forms of horticulture. So that was written by her. And then the book was eventually edited by Nancy Goodwin at Montrose, and also with help from Alan Lacey and also Paul Jones. Some of you may not remember Paul, but Paul was a member of our chapter back in the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, and worked at Duke Garden. And he wrote the conifer section of the book that was eventually published. Now, in the book that's published, A to Z, there are some chapters that she actually finished and others that she didn't finish. So those that she finished have her initial by it, and those that Nancy finished have her initials, and those that Paul finished has his initials too. Now there's Elizabeth Lawrence standing in her garden in Raleigh, and the steps she's standing on was also the spaniel there, right there. Now behind her is her perennial border, and I have a picture of that you'll see later. Now there she is in the garden in Raleigh, taken by the News and Observer in 1942. And she's working in the perennial border. There's an alley, not unlike the garden she had in Charlotte, with the perennial border. Just to the left of the picture, which you can't see, in this one is a rock garden, sunny rock garden, and then to the left of that was a small pool. Now we'll see that here in this picture, taken in 1939 by the News and Observer. And what you see there, those are steps again where she was standing a few seconds ago, you saw. That's the area where the rock garden is. And that's the pool there. And up here is the perennial and annual border with a wall in the back that was adjacent to Ash Avenue or Ash Street at that time. Now, she wrote 4 books when she had died. She had written 4 books, and 8 books have posthumously been published of her writings, collections of her writings, some unfinished, some based on correspondence that she did, 2 books based on newspaper columns for the Charlotte Observer. She also wrote for the North Carolina Wildflower Preservation Society, many articles in that. They're all collected in several books that I mentioned. Now, she wrote 11 articles for the American Rock Garden Society's Bulletin. Now, the Bulletin is what is now called the Quarterly, but 4 of those articles appear to have been articles she intended to write or had worked on for the unpublished manuscript that was eventually published by Nancy Goodwin and Duke University Press. And in 1972, Elizabeth Lawrence earned the NARGS or ARGS, American Rock Garden Society Award of Merit. Now, she had a friend, another connection to our chapter. His name was Bill Hunt, William Lanier Hunt. There's a camellia named after him. Bill was one of the founders of the North Carolina Botanical Garden, and he also was he was very gregarious and outgoing, had a very strong personality. People knew him everywhere, and the reason people knew him because he wrote a weekly garden column for about 4 decades for the Durham Herald, and the Durham Herald articles were syndicated throughout newspapers in the Southeast. So that's what gave him notoriety and publicity that Elizabeth Lawrence didn't have. Now, she was more inwardly looking and was not very active and traveled as much as he did. But she had her mother to take care of also because her father had died of a stroke some years before that. And they did travel some together, and they often, not often, but sometimes lectured together on the same program. Now, Bill wrote 1 book, actually a collection of his garden columns, and Elizabeth Lawrence wrote the foreword to that in 1982. That was also published by Duke University Press. As I said, and I can't overemphasize the fact that he had numerous horticulture connections because of his notoriety and fame in his newspaper article that was distributed from Virginia all the way down to Louisiana, as far as Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, in 1934, there was a founding meeting of the American Rock Garden Society in New York City at the Commodore Hotel. And Bill Hunt was invited to that meeting. And here's a photograph taken of it's actually a luncheon that was being held. And up here is the main table. There was the president of the Royal Horticultural Society in London was there, and there are other lords and ladies and viscounts and viscountesses from the United Kingdom that were invited also to that luncheon. Now, I'm not sure exactly, but I think that's Bill Hunt right there. So, yeah, I think that's one I finally picked out. I'm not sure. We don't know where he is, but he was there for sure because he wrote about it and told Elizabeth Lawrence about it, and that's confirmed by her writings. Now, in July 1934, Bill Hunt is credited and claims in several writings that he did to have introduced rock gardening to the South. And he did that by bringing in 100-pound blocks of ice into the basement of the Methodist Church in Chapel Hill, cover them with the blocks of ice with burlap and sphagnum moss, and then put small pots of native plants, phlox and ferns and green and gold and osserums, for example. Now he had to bring in the blocks of ice each day over 3 days in which the demonstrations have been shown in Chapel Hill, and people poured into the basement because there was not air conditioning in those days, and it was hot July weather. So he changed it and held it up for 3 days. And once people heard about it, it came even after the exhibit was closed. Now, later in July of 1934, the American Rock Garden Society actually sent out membership forms for the first time. Even though they had met in March, it was really an organizational meeting. And at that meeting, Bill Hunt was actually elected the Southern Regional Vice President of the American Rock Garden Society. They don't have regional vice presidents anymore, but they did in 1934 and or a few years after that. So Bill and Elizabeth were both founding members of the American Rock Garden Society beginning in July 1934. Now, let's fast forward at warp speed to 1984, 50 years later, when the American Rock Art Society celebrated its 50th anniversary. And this was a meeting that was held in Asheville, North Carolina. And it was organized by Frank Cabot. Frank Cabot had been a treasurer of NARGS, and he also would later found the Garden Conservancy 4 or 5 years later. Frank Cabot organized a meeting in Asheville, but he also had help from staff at the North Carolina Botanical Garden and Bill Hunt and this woman there, Sandra Ladendorf, who would become our first chapter chair in 1985 when we first got organized. Now, this is a picture on one of the evenings when awards are being given, and that is Richie Bell at the North Carolina Botanical Garden getting the Edgar Weir Award promoting native plants. Now, the 50th anniversary conference took place over several days. As a matter of fact, it took place over parts of 3 weeks. There was a pre-conference tour in the Piedmont area in which they visited the Ralston Arboretum, Botanical Garden, some private gardens, Duke Gardens, and also they went down to the Sand Hills, saw turkey oak and longleaf pine and wiregrass there, Kyle. They also went to the Green Swamp, and they also went to the Atlantic Ocean. Then there was a post-conference tour in the Asheville area, went to all the mountain coves and areas that we know about and have been there many times. There was like a 2 evenings of talks and lectures, and you see the number of people attended there, 289 from 28 states, 6 countries. And that's Bill Hunt there giving his talk about bringing blocks of ice in to the Methodist Church. Now, that's Frank Cabot doing a rendition of the American Rock Garden Society hymn, Tim. He's leading a barbershop quartet with 4 other guys and singing it to the members that were in attendance that night. Now, J.C. Ralston was at that conference also. And on Sunday night, he gave a talk called Developing Microclimates for Environmental Specific Plants. And what J.C. did, he wowed the audience by bringing in 3 slide projectors, 3 carousels, and 3 screens and proceeded to give them a panoramic talk of developing microclimates for specific plants, including rock garden plants, of course. Now, also at that meeting in 1984 was Norman Singer on the left and his partner, Jeffrey Charlesworth, on the right. Norman was a secretary of NARGS. He also would become vice president and future president of NARGS. They were both from the Berkshire chapter of NARGS, which is in Western Massachusetts. And the Norman Singer Grant is named after Norman, and the Charlesworth Writing Prize for the best paper in the NARGS Quarterly is named after the Charlesworth because he gave money in the endowment, and Richard kind of attested that, I believe. Now, that's Sandra Legendorf, our first chapter chair. Now, she was involved in the planning of the fruit conference tour in the Piedmont, North Carolina area. She helped coordinate that. And Norman and Jeffrey were so impressed with the activity and attendance at that actual meeting that they arm twisted her several times over phone calls in the following year to establish a rock garden chapter in North Carolina. There was not one in North Carolina at that time. So that's Sandra as I knew her in the early 90s. I think Tony probably remembers her looking like that as well. Now, Sandra was also writing a garden column at the time for the Raleigh News and Observer. So she and two other people planned the organization of the first meeting in Chapel Hill at Botanical Garden, and she wrote about plans for that meeting. And in here, she talks about where it's going to meet, and she even mentions what the subject's going to be, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Now, Bill Hunt also wrote about the first meeting of our chapter in 1985, and that took place after the meeting took place. And so here are the facts of the first meeting. It met on September 21st, 1985 at 1 p.m. at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. And the first lecture that was ever given was by Sandra, which was a slideshow on the superlative rock garden at Edinburgh, Scotland, Julia. Now, so that's the organizing team of our chapter in 1985. Sandra Legendorf, Nancy Goodman at Montrose, and also Edith Boyer, who was the secretary and treasurer. There's Nancy at Montrose leading a tour of the snowdrops in her garden in Hillsborough. Now, the first 5.5 years of the organization of our chapter, excuse me, there was no newsletter. Communication about the meetings was either by postcard or folding an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and mailing it, or a phone call, or occasionally there would be an article in the News and Observer about an upcoming meeting. And I want to say that meetings weren't as regular as they are now, but fairly sporadic. Availability of speakers and also availability of the meeting space at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. So in 1991, I had a Macintosh computer, and new desktop publishing software was just coming out. And so I used PageMaker to create the first newsletter. And that's the newsletter there on the left-hand side. And the article on the left is by Bill Hunt, writing about, guess what? Blocks of ice into the basement of the Methodist Church in Chapel Hill. I still have the original paper that he typed on an old manual typewriter with errors in it. On the left, on the right-hand side, Sandra Legendorf talks about the first 5 years of the founding of our chapter. So I edited the newsletter for 14 years. And then, the logo of our chapter was decided upon. Tim was pointing out the fact that he has some copies of the newsletter that I edited over there. Is the first issue there also? It is. Is Tony going to offer it as a bid or something tonight and see what it goes for? In the founding of our chapter, Sandra Legendorf decided we needed a logo, an emblem from our chapter. So we had a contest that we would name the logo for our chapter, and the prize was a 1-year membership in the Piedmont chapter of the American Rock Garden Society that was still known at that time. And the winner was a fellow named Thurman Manus. And you may not have realized it, but in the logo that was in the 14 years that I edited, his initials are there, right there, T. Manus. And T. Manus had a nursery near Pittsburgh, I believe. And one of the plants that he's famous for introducing was lobelia, cardinal flower. He's still living, according to Tony. He visited him in his garden last year, I think it was. Now, after I edited for 14 years, Marion Stevens took over and edited for an amazing 20 years. And she updated the look of the quarterly, of the publication I made, and brought color to it for the first time. So there was no 10th anniversary celebration. Nobody thought about it. No one cared, I guess, or just was forgotten about. But we did have a 10th anniversary celebration that was done a little bit late in January 2006, in which Tony Avent talked about a trip he and Alan Galloway and others had taken to northern Vietnam and Thailand the year before. And there's a program that Tony handed out, a slide list of the plants that we were going to be looking at. Now, the 30th anniversary of our chapter was celebrated with Panayoticolitis of the Denver Botanic Garden coming to speak to our chapter. And that's a photograph of him cutting the celebration cake. Panayotic called me yesterday and told me to wish a happy birthday to our chapter tonight. So I'm passing those greetings along to you as well. Now, I wanted to just list briefly the chapter chairs we've had. I want to mention one person some of you may or may not know, but you know the name right there, Richard Partridge. Richard was a student at NC State under JC, and it was JC's idea for recommended him to make a hybrid cross between the Chinese Calacanthus and the southern Southeast United States Calacanthus. And the cross was made and it bloomed 3 years later on the occasion of the International Dendrology Society meeting in this area in May 1996. Now, it was JC's intention to name the plant eventually, but he died a few months later in December 1996. So it was Todd Lassane, I think, in 1999, when the plant was eventually named Calacanthus ralstonii Hartledge wine. And the Hartledge is this Richard right here, Hartledge. He was chair of our chapter for a part of a year. He didn't finish out a term because he had just graduated and was seeking a job. He took a job in New Jersey, managing some estates there for a while. And he's now in Seattle, Washington, managing a design firm. So I thought that was a name you might want to know about. And we've had two people to be chairs of our chapter, of the national meeting, Sandra Langendorf, me, and Cindy Cromwell in the back there waiting in the wings to take over next year. Now, three people in our chapter have received the Marcel Lapiniak Award. J.C. Rawson, Tony Avent, and Richard Dufresne. There's J.C. standing in front of the original and only, the original Styrax japonicus emerald pagoda at the Rawson Arboretum now. I took that picture of him in 1991 on the occasion of getting the Lapiniak Award. That's given for introducing new plants to the landscape. And JC certainly did that. Tony Avent has done that in spades since then. As of 2025, looking at his website, if this is still correct, Tony, 1,440 plants have been introduced by Plant Delights Nursery and Juniper Level Botanic Garden. That's an award being given by Cindy for a chapter service award a couple of years ago, I believe. And another person who endlessly promoted salvias and other allied plants such as Acastachia and things like that. He also received the Lapiniak Award for introducing new plants to our landscape. Now, another award that's given annually by the American Rock Garden Society or the North American Rock Garden Society is the Lincoln Timmy Foster Millstream Award. Lincoln Timmy Foster lived in Connecticut in a garden they called Millstream. Lincoln was the founder of the Connecticut chapter of the American Rock Garden Society, and his wife, Timmy, whose real name was Laura Louise, but she was always known as Timmy, was the editor of the American Rock Garden Society Bulletin. And she also was an artist and did illustrations of native rock garden plants. So one of the highest awards that the American Rock Garden Society and NARGS gives is called the Millstream Award for Outstanding Gardens. And we've had four people in our chapter receive the award. Nancy Goodwin at Montrose in 2017, Tony Avon at Dinner Plover Botanic Garden, also in 2017. And then this year, Rudy Riggs and Jim Phillip for their garden up at Hurdle Mills. So we congratulate all those. Now, I want to mention the number of meetings that we've had. Our chapter has organized 5 national meetings. The first one was in 1990, January 1990, that Sandra Leydendorf organized. And these are some of the speakers we had there. There's J.C. Ralston at the bottom. J.C. gave the after-dinner talk on the Saturday night banquet on, guess what? Julia, Rock Garden Plants of the World. Stole Your Thunder. This is one I helped organize in 1999. Some people there you all will know. Tony Avon, Dan Hinckley, Will McLuhan, John Grimshaw, Nancy Goodwin. We hosted another meeting in 2004. Pam Harper, Jim Archibald, Emily Wilton. She spoke on a biography she had just written of Elizabeth Lawrence. And then we co-hosted a meeting with the Southern Appalachian Chapter of NARGS in Asheville in 2013. That was mostly trips to see the flowers in the mountain areas around Asheville. So we only had 3 speakers at night, and that was Patrick McMillan, and then one on the geology of the Blue Ridge Mountains, another on the wildflowers of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then the last one that David White organized primarily was a conference in 2017. And you see the speakers there, Tony Avon and Jeremy Schmidt spoke together on the same program, talking about Crevice Garden that they were installing at that time. And other people, Andrew Sprout spoke on Elizabeth Lawrence. Oops, back up. Sorry, close your eyes. John Grimshaw. Tim spoke about J.C. Ralston there at the bottom. And we have another meeting coming up, which will be our 6th national meeting in June 2027, which Cindy has put her oar in and is organizing now with other people. And that will be held in conjunction with the Southeastern Plant Symposium, which Tony and Mark are organizing later in that same week. So it'll be held back to back. So that's a sort of a brief thumbnail of our chapter going back 5 decades prior to 85, bring us up to date. And I want to end with this quote from Liberty Howard Bailey at Cornell University. He said, "A rock garden is a place in which to grow plants. The rocks are secondary. If one is making a collection of rocks, one's pursuit is geology rather than garden." Liberty Howard Bailey, Cornell University. And that's it. Thank you. I first met our speaker, Julia Corden, in October 2026 when I attended the fall discussion weekend meeting of the Scottish Rock Garden Club in Pitlow Creek, Scotland, a meeting that Julia had organized. At the time, she worked nearby as Explorer's Garden, which is a woodland garden that commemorates Scots who travel around the world looking for new plants to introduce into our landscape. Julia was trained in horticulture at the Royal Horticultural Society in Wisley and also at the Royal Botanical Garden in Edinburgh. She is judged in the Chelsea Flower Show, has served on various Royal Horticultural Society committees. She's a past president of the Scottish Rock Garden Club, and she's currently a freelance botanical tour guide for Brightwater Holidays. She's led tours to Switzerland, Greece, Costa Rica, Chile, South Africa, Japan, and New Zealand, guiding trips for the American Rock Garden Society, the Alpine Garden Society, and the Scottish Rock Garden Club. She's here tonight at the beginning of the North American Rock Garden Society's East Coast Traveling Speakers Tour to help further celebrate our chapter 40th anniversary. She's speaking on the topic of Alpine Plants around the world. Please welcome Julia Corden.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so yeah, thank you all very much for inviting me. I love alpines. I first bought my first membership to the Alpine Garden Society when I was 14. We won't work out how many that is. We've been doing too many of those at the moment. I've literally just semi-retired. Last year when I broke my leg badly, I was head gardener of a big stately home down in West Sussex called Goodwood, which does car racing, if you're into car racing. That's it, exactly. But my passion is plants. It's not doing big stately homes. So let's go. I'm going to make sure I do the right one. Yes. So my very first trips to see alpines in the world was to go to Wengen in 1982. And since then, I've led about 20 odd trips there to go and see the flowers. The Jungfrau is the most amazing mountain. You can see it from all around. When we go, it's always June. Sorry, it used to always be the first 2 weeks of July, and the alpines were fantastic. Over the last 40 odd years, it has now come that you need to go the second and third week of June to see the plants. I thought I'd taken that out. Okay, we might not have taken it may have not saved when we took some out. So this is the side of the north face of the Eiger, one of the most amazing mountains there. But more to the point is underneath there and all around down. So around here is my favourite place because you find all the most amazing alpines down through here and in here. Or you come through here to this, and this is where you find the Lady Slipper Orchid. It's very, very easy to get there. I was there this year and I had a 92-year-old and I still got her down there. But I have to say, she would just stand here and just drop on the floor on her knees and I'd be hobbling down. So I've damaged my knees, and you'll understand why when you see where I've been. But even when you go in June, July, you always get snow. Not always, but nearly always get a nice drop of snow. You always see beautiful soldanellas. This is Soldanella pusilla. And this is one of my most exquisite alpines that I loved. When I was about the age of 10, I got told my birthday present was to go to Will Ingleson's and choose my alpines. I got the book out, I went through my mum's book, and I picked all the ones I wanted. Soldanella alpina was one of them. This is pusilla. And I met Will Ingleson and he gave me all my alpines. So I still had birthday money left. Gentiana corlis is always one of the classic plants that my clients want to go and see. And even if it does snow, within about a few hours, the snow will go and then you'll still see lots more. It's usually growing through the meadows up there at high altitudes. One of the first plants to come as soon as the snow goes is Pulsatilla vernalis. This exquisite little plant comes up, has beautiful hairs all over it, and the beautiful pink on the back of the petal. Also, one of the other plants that comes very quickly, oh, that's coming out right, is Crocus albiflorus. But you don't need to go all over the world to find plants. You can just nip to Switzerland and find new species or new hybrids. This is a new area which not many people have actually seen. It's underneath the north face of the Eiger. It's on the Eiger Trail that only opened up about 15 years ago. People wouldn't go there normally, but now you can. But you need to be there just at the right minute. And this is a hybrid between Primula auricula and Primula hirsuta. And it's one of the few locations where it's found in Europe. You get great big drifts. Well, there's quite a few drifts. Is there any way you can get this better? Because the colours don't seem right up there to here. Because that's just how it's going to be. Okay, we'll just go with how it's going to be. So you've got the lovely pinks, you get the whites, and you get the yellows. It's awful, actually. Sorry, I'll keep going. If you go up to there, you then cross the other side to Berg, which is a great place to go. And you can get here very easily by cable car, or a big cable car that takes you right up. You can walk out from up here. There's a path around here and you cut down through here. But then you want to walk on the ridge up here. So like up on this ridge here, There's about a 3,000-foot drop there. Yeah, so you don't quite go on that edge. But all through here, down through here, you've got androcysses growing. You can also go up in the cable car here to the Schilthorn at the top, which is a revolving restaurant. And I know some of you here have been with me to Switzerland, and so you know what I'm talking about. It's a fabulous location. Yeah, the restaurant's good. And when you walk out at the top of the restaurant, you'll find lots of alpines up there. 4 species of alpines up there. But in the rocks that you can get to, you'll find Androcyssae helvetica, just tucked in underneath the rocks. And those plants have been there now. I've known them there, and they don't seem to have grown any bigger. And little ones are coming, but they're not really dying either, which is great. That's Androcyssae helvetica. But at the top of the Schilthorn, where it's a great place to have a cup of coffee, take in the view, because the actual restaurant goes round, which is brilliant. So just don't put your handbag on the side or your camera, because you'll leave it behind. So when you walk outside and you can go down, there's a little walkway you can go down. We don't walk all the way down. It's not right for clients, not right for me either. You get loads of Ranunculus glacialis. In the last couple of years, we've been seeing thousands and thousands of them all through these screeds, and it's just been amazing. This plant is really beautiful. Yeah, it's white when it first comes into flower, and once it gets pollinated, it goes a really nice pinky red colour. But of course, one of the classics to see, you see the spring gentian, and then here you've got this beautiful little Gentiana verna, just here with the mountains in the background. This is the nurseryman's dream, because in Britain anyway, people buy it and it only lasts for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then they want another one. But for me, I always love being right underneath the Jungfrau. That's right above us there. And this meadow here is one of my favourite meadows. We don't take all the clients there now, because over the last 40 years, it has literally gone from thousands and thousands to only a few hundred. In here, there is slipper orchids. There's a few, maybe, but that's the kind of terrain it's in here. We're pretty sure there used to be a forest here. It got wiped away with the avalanche. Nobody can remember, but there's odd bits of tree there. But you find huge big clumps of lady slipper orchids like that. This year I had a very nice group with me, and we decided I would take them in, because they were being relatively careful on how they trod, with only 7 people. And we went in and we found some nice big clumps, but not like it used to be, where they were just everywhere. You really had to hunt for them. They've been dug up and they've been trodden on, and that's just destroyed them, which is really sad. But I just love slipper orchids. I know you have lots over here, but we only have one in Britain. It's not really there now. Also, you get lovely pulsatillas. This is a Pulsatilla alpina. The meadows are just breathtaking. I always thought these were fantastic. I've now been to America up with PK, and you'll see those in a bit, and they're even better. But this is Trollius europaeus and Ranunculus acunatifolius. And every year it changes. You think it's going to be a yellow, you get there and you think it's going to be a yellow year, or it might be a white year. But every year the meadows change in which colour it's going to be. And for going so many times, you would think everything would be the same always. It's not at all. Completely changes. But I have to put this in. I am still very involved with the Scottish Rock Garden Club. I did 5 weekends for them. 2 in Pitlochry and 3 up in Braunton-on-Spey, and I love doing conferences. We were planning to do on 2021, and we had everything organised, and then because of the pandemic, I had to pull the plug in April 2020, which was very sad, because I'd already spent 5 years on getting it ready. They are talking of doing 2031, and we're just hoping that they will do. So this is Dryasocta petala, and that's the emblem for the Scottish Rock Garden Club. Also, in the meadows here, you'll get quite a lot of orchids. As I say, lots of beautiful ones. This is Orchis muscula. Beautiful little pedicularis. Pedicularis Odoi. It has a beautiful crimson tip to it. And under these, up at the top, you get the screes. And in the screes, you get like Thalaspi rotundifolia growing there. Saxifraga oppositifolia, which is a native right across all over the place, Europe and North America. And a little Viola sinisia, which is a very rare one, and it actually creeps underneath the screes. I've taken this out. But anyway, you do get these fabulous meadows, and from these fabulous meadows, you get fabulous cows, which produce the best chocolate in the world. So you don't have to, I always try to, when I'm in Europe, I try and say, in Britain, say, look, you don't need to go that far. You can go and get some sunshine as well. You can still go to the ancient ruins, and you can go to the tombs of the kings, and you'll find Cyclamen persicum just growing in the rocks. You're walking around looking at the ancient things, and there's a cyclamen. So for me, it's always go to look for the cyclamen. Beautiful giant orchids you get out there. They grow really tall in the meadows and on the roadsides. And even now, this would have been about 15 years ago, new plants are still, this is actually this is cypress, and this is Fritillaria persica. And they never realized it grew in Cyprus until about 20 odd years ago, and it was found in a wood. Suddenly, it was just there, not near a road, so it's always been there. So new plants are being found all the time. Lovely Ferula communis growing in the roadsides of the area. And when you go right up to the top of the Troodos Mountains, you've got all the beautiful cedars up there. But when you get to the very top, if we're there at the right time, this is March, everything, snow's just going, snow's still just going, but around all in the wet areas here, see little dots, you get crocus citrus. So, which was really, really beautiful to see. But I'm actually known not for going to Cyprus. I'm actually known for going to Bhutan. If you type my name into Google, it comes up stuff about this place. Well, not Tiger's Nest, but Bhutan. I've done 6 expeditions to Bhutan, which we've been very privileged and lucky to go to new areas. And we've been the first foreign people to go into these areas. Our local guide is friends with one of the people in Parliament, and he gets us in. So this is the main road going from east to west. This is the beautiful Chortens and the fantastic prayer wheels. The colours, scent, everything about the place was just amazing. We first went in 2006. The local village is fabulous. Colours are great. The chilies are always just being dried. We always go in June, July when it's the monsoon time. So on the roadside, you'll find Benthamilla capitata growing everywhere, huge big trees with nearly always in full flower. But the rain is great, or not. The rain is really bad. Everything is very wet all the time, and you have to realise when you go, everything is going to be wet the whole time. This is a really bad day, and our brilliant guide and one of our porters had actually stopped to make a fire. And that's what we have to put up with, the leeches. The leeches, we get them so far going up in the mountains. Not all the mountains, it's like the first 2 days. And once we get past the first 2 days, you're not going to have these things jumping out at you. And they just appear from nowhere. You can be in a field, the ground is, the grass is short because there's been cows eating, and they still seem to drop from somewhere and get you. And they normally get me around my tummy. So if you're not going to die from the leeches, because I always thought I was going to die from the leeches, you're going to die doing that. So this is the kind of mad stuff you do. This is actually on the road going out to the far western side of Bhutan. We've just had a landslide. That's why there's hold up of queues of everywhere. And the drop just goes straight down hundreds of feet. And if the lorry goes or you go, you've had it. And they just leave a little steering wheel on the side of the road with your picture. They do. The people that look after it come from just over in India, or they actually use a lot of Nepalese. The local Bhutanese do not want to get involved in anything like this. They want other people to come and do it. And these guys just look after, or families look after, a section piece of the road. And then you'll find the children running in and out of the vehicles. All the way down the road. Yeah, you see, it takes a few seconds to read it, doesn't it? After whiskey, driving is very risky. All the way down the road, you will see these signs every 10 or so kilometers. Not this one. This is the polite one. There's all sorts of things about curves and bumps, and things are completely politically not right. But for me, this picture is just fab. Julia Pass at 4,000 meters, which is up here, right up in there. So this is the yaks. The first day we had the yaks come on our first expedition. It was an amazing thing. We were going away for 4 weeks, walking into the mountains. We were going right up to the Chinese border. And we were going in the footstep of Sheriff. So as Bobby said, I used to run the Explorer's Garden at Pitlochry. I set it up and got it going, ran it for 19 years. COVID came along. We all lost our jobs, but hey ho. And for that, they had allowed me to go off as long as I found the money, my own time. I could go off on expeditions like this. So, you know, going away June, July in Britain is no-no. 4 weeks? No. Well, it's 5 weeks. 4 weeks in the mountain, a week traveling. So the first morning we walked. The yaks came, they collected our stuff. We had to walk all the way through there and up through here to get to here. Amazing. And down the other side. And on the other side, that's where you come in here. And then you walk down through here. And by the time we hit here, it was dark. And we had to carry on going down here to here. I love this valley. A couple of years later, we came from another angle. We stayed there and we had a waterfall and rockfall in the middle of the night that tried to wash our tents away. But the most important thing about this valley, it's full of Mechanopsis paniculata. And 1 year you could just have millions going down the valley. The whole valley would be in flower. And you could go back there 2 years later and there'd be no flowers at all. But you would go to another valley and that would be full. So you would find 1 year the valley would be solid flowers, and then you'll see rosettes coming, and then it will be another couple of years before they came. These are fantastic Mechanopsis that grow this high, have yellow flowers and thousands of seeds. Moving further over to the east to Sapton area, you come across Mechanopsis grandis, which is my passion because I had a national collection of blue poppies with 54 different varieties. That's at the Explorer's Garden. You'll see that tomorrow. One of the beautiful areas at Walthang at 4,500 meters. So it's great for me to go to this altitude because my altitude sickness is that I can't swallow properly food. I can drink tomato soup with mixed up eggs in it. If you give me a bowl of rice, no, just can't swallow it properly. So it's a great way to lose weight. Up here you'll find Primula alpicola, just growing great big drifts of it. So the whole of this room would be full of the most amazing sweet scent. And Mechanopsis horridula, the lovely spiny one that grows a few inches high. And we were really lucky to find that we actually found a new subspecies through here. Oh, I took it out. Okay. Our one has little lumps on it and it's got a lovely spine out. Kit Ray Wilson has named a few Mechanopsis that we've given him information on. Lilium Sherifii we found. It's a beautiful chocolate one. And inside it has a really beautiful markings, checkerboard markings. We also found a pink form. We've only ever seen it written about that they found it, but nothing else than that. No herbarium specimens, nothing. Since then, we found 3 locations for this pink lily, and it's beautiful. But one of our best things there was this Mechanopsis gacadiniana. We actually found it over on the east side of Bhutan on the Arunachal Pradesh border. As we were coming in, Japanese man was going out. He got it named before Kit Gray Wilson did. But anyway, that's fine. It grows about this high and has this beautiful, gorgeous, wavy edge to the petal. So that should be a lot darker blue. Going down to one of the most smallest and one of the most difficult to grow is Meconopsis bella. This has come in and out of cultivation in Scotland many times, and I remember unwrapping a parcel in the early 80s when I worked for Ron Macbeth and Alf Evans in the Alpine section. Ron came back from Nepal and he had this, and I remember unpacking it, potting it up and putting it into quarantine. Many seeds and many expeditions have collected this over the time, but it has now, it's still not in cultivation properly. Wherever you go, if you go to the far end of the eastern side of Bhutan, this is the entrance gate coming out into Assam. But over in Arunachal Pradesh, because we've also been there, this is my favourite plant from there. It's called Swertia hookerai, Gentianaceae family, and I always thought it should be called rhubarb and custard. We thought if the local garden centre in Scotland got hold of it, it's a biannual, they would have it out as a plant for sale every summer. But over there, we actually found beautiful red Meconopsis paniculata with very, very white hairs, beautiful green leaves. I think we found about a dozen of them there. We never found any yellow ones over there. Up at this place and area, we are finding Cainocaris hookerai, the Alpine forget-me-not. This is right up on the Indian-Chinese border, where no helicopters. So everywhere we've been in the Himalayas, there's no get-out clause. We can't get out if we have an accident. But this is an area where Ludlow went, and we've got his diaries and we've got all the information. And when we walk down, so I should say, this is the Indian Himalayas and that's the Chinese Himalayas. And we then went down here and walked up here, not straight up, at angles like that. And we found this new Meconopsis, this Meconopsis ludlowii, which has now been named after Ludlow by Kit Gray Wilson. The weather was hard, the weather was amazing, and every so often you would get the views. It's been a hard frost this morning, and it's one of my favourite pictures of our tents. But you can read the diaries, and it tells you to walk down across the meadow. Underneath the rock, you will find Primula caviana. Well, 60 or 70 years later, we did that, and the same Primula was in the same location. You know, you just didn't think it would be tucked under it, and it was. And there was only one big rock in this meadow. That's the young me. So this is Rheum nobile. It's really to show you that it grows very tall. This is the giant rhubarb. Fabulous thing. And if you open up the bracts, you get the flower inside. And the insects go inside here, and it's always warmer in there, and out of the wind and the rain, they do the pollination. Where we go in Bhutan, there's always see hundreds of these. If you go to China, they're not so easy to find, because where we are, up in the mountains in Bhutan, you don't see many people. And when the rheums are like cabbages, they actually cut them and cook them like cabbages. But my favourite plants, maybe the Meconopsis, but this Primula is always my favourite. It's Primula solanoides, growing about an inch high, with the most exquisite little flower, little bluey coloured calyx at the back. And the scent would fill this room, just one flower. Has been in cultivation in Scotland, but not for a long time. In this area as well, we get sandstone and we get fabulous Paraquilidas, these huge big flowers growing in the crevices. But if you don't want blue Meconopsis, then you would go for the pink one. And this is Meconopsis sheriffi. Again, there was only a couple of locations of this found in Bhutan, but now I think we have over 6 locations for it. Has been in cultivation, but no longer. But let's go to the other end of the, down to the southern hemisphere. So this is South Africa up on Table Mountain. Very easy to get to, with beautiful fynbos and fabulous views across. The king protea you'll find up on the side of Table Mountain. And up on the Table Mountain as well, you'll find the Amanites. But if you go further afield and go over onto the west coast and start going up through the beautiful meadows, in August time, you'll find lovely little gladioli, carpets of white daisies going as far as you can see. This week it could be orange and white, and next week it could be blue, or it could be bright yellow. It just changes all the time. And of course, you find the little mesembryons. Whilst we're still down in the Southern Hemisphere, we could go to New Zealand. I was lucky enough to be invited out there to do a 3-week lecture tour, do 11 lectures from Invercargill up to the north of the South Island. Actually, I had 3 trips there. Oh, so one of these best places, and I said if I was going to do the lecture tour, I had to see Hastia, I had to go and do kayaking in Stewart Islands, and I had to see a kiwi. So I did the last 2, and this is us going to look for Hastia pulvinaris, which is one of the most amazing things. It's one of the great big vegetable sheep. And this is where it is, up in these areas here, up on these screes here. This is Hamish Brown, who was the president of the New Zealand Rock Garden Society. He's in a little Roalia there. They're just growing on the rocks. If you can see here, it looks like a moss, or it even looks like a rock. And when you get closer, it looks like that. But it was Steve Newell. I don't know. Some of you must know this guy, or did know this guy. It's Steve Newell there, who was the main person in New Zealand collecting alpine seed and selling it to Gelito, or sending it back to the Alpine Garden Society. And the gentleman behind it is Joe Cartman, who had clematis. Joe named after him. You've read him. So we went right up on top. Whoops, sorry, wrong direction. When you get up there, we had a thunderstorm, as you do. But luckily, there's a ski hut there, and that's where we're staying the night. This is all moving scree here. You can see where the water's rushed it all away. And this is one of the things we were looking at. It's a little plant called Nothothlaspi. It's very, very small. It's an annual. My finger to prove how small it is. And then it comes up with this beautiful little white flower. But what we'd actually gone up for is vegetable sheep. And you can kind of see like sheepy things through here. And this is what we've gone for. This is Hastia pulvinaris. And it's like this. You've got the little flowers tucked in here. And it's a daisy family. That shows. And that plant will be about 200 years old, we worked out. And it's so hard, you can actually sit on it. It's absolutely solid. There were little ones coming up, new ones coming, which was great. But the reason for going this area is you get Hastia pulvinaris and Hastia pulvinaris minor. They think somebody mixed up the herbarium specimens, because this one's called minor, even though it's the bigger one. And this is Hastia pulvinaris. So they're quite different when you actually get to them. That's in full flower. There's the flowers just coming out. And it has all this amazing dew all over it. But in New Zealand, every farm or station, the wives always do like a cottage industry. And a lot of them grow erimuris and sell them to Japan for cut flowers. They also cut trilliums and sell trilliums to Japan. This lady had 3 tunnels, shade tunnels, full of trilliums, just like that. All sorts of colours. And there's a post just gone on the Trillium Facebook page of down in Invercargill, where the local council have got all their trilliums in their borders. And they are every colour, from yellows, lemony, limey colours, burgundies, through to whites. Dave Tools put them on, they're amazing. But right up on top, it's so easy. Well, it's so difficult to get to a lot of the places, but there are a couple of places you can actually drive up to, and you can just get out, and it's all there in front of you. This is just great big tundra going away, full of salmisias and all other myosotis things. There's a little myosotis. And there's salmisias, just great big drifts of them. not the right time for them to flower though. We do grow quite a few in Scotland. And this is an Acephala, the Spanish thorn. And you don't want to, if there's a whole lot of these, you definitely don't want to go too near to them because they actually stab and they kill the sheep because they're that sharp. Points are like the agaves actually. Monkey Creek is always a great place to go to. That takes you through to Gertrude Valley. You see blue mountain ducks here nearly always in this river. And when you get up towards the Homer Tunnel, if you get a super bloom, which I did on the ranunculus, all the white blobs there are ranunculus lyoli, the Mount Cook lily. Up on the screes by the Homer Tunnel, you'll find lots of Ericias and little salmisias and a different type of castor. This is Erisia cespitosa, and it always likes to be near water. Let's go up. And then the NARGS bit comes in. So for me, I've been really lucky over the years. I've been coming to NARGS stuff for about the last 10 years and got involved with quite a few things. And one of my most amazing trips I took was to go up to St. John's and to go up the west coast there. So the beautiful Cypripedium macaulay just growing in the woods everywhere. Todd had been over and given a lecture at the Scottish Rock Garden Club and just said, oh yeah, they're just everywhere. You'll just see slippers everywhere. So I thought I had to come and see. And they were everywhere. Cypripedium macaulay, really beautiful, just growing out. That was just growing outside of the Botanic Gardens. And going up the west coast of St. John, Newfoundland, we saw fabulous Cypripedium vaginae, great big drifts of them. And lots of Cypripedium parviflorum. And this is what he said to me. You'll just see they look like dandelions on the side of the road. And that was his comment. They look like dandelions on the side of the road. And he showed pictures of them. And I'm like, really? And we did. The dandelions are just finished. And there's literally Cypripediums everywhere. And if you stopped there and looked out to sea, it was whales as well. That year we had whales every day. Back to NARGS. So in whatever it was, 2016 was Denver and up to Steamboat Springs. And then some of us went on the post-conference tour. There's Johan hiding there from Gothenburg Botanics. He's trying to get to the end here because there's a very special plant called Calzea uniflora. And we did see it in flower there. It's absolutely amazing growing up on these rocks. Also Clematis tenuiloba, just great big drifts of it across the screes. Oh, it was just stunning. I got a pic. I didn't put it in, but I got a picture of Johan laying down. He's laying out full length, and there's Clematis in front of him, and it still went bigger than he was. But the meadows there are just amazing. Every meadow is slightly different. Oh, and you just get out the vehicles, and there they are. All the lupins, the myosotis, the little potentillas just growing. You can't put your foot between them. It's just going for miles. And back to the Southern Hemisphere. So this is back down to Chile. An amazing place. I went there about 15 years ago. Well, other than 2 years ago with NARGS to go to Patagonia. So the mountains here are just fabulous. The great big gorse, that's it, but it's not in flower with me, but it's just to show how big it is. The Bolex Gumilifera are just huge big clumps of it everywhere. So hard you can near enough sit on them. So we thought we'd taken out some pictures, but when it saved it, it didn't save it properly. So we're going off to Falklands in a minute. So the orchids down there are just brilliant, beautiful ones you can see everywhere. This is Magellanica. And this is going into we may be right then. Patagonia 2 years ago, wasn't it, when we were all down there? And the absolutely beautiful buttercup with the view off into the distance. Callianthemorides, I should say, actually. This has been one of my ultimate plants to see in the world, and I just have to sit in the corner away from everybody and just take lots of pictures and just take it in. So they were just amazing. as you realise, there's lots of plants that I really loved it and I really want to see. So this is a pink one. It was a semi-double one, and it was very, very pink tinge to it. But the Rosulate violas were just amazing to see. And every day we saw different ones that Marcella was finding us. This is Viola cotyledon. Tim, if you want to tell me I've got the names wrong, I'm very happy. Viola corinifera. Brown colours are just so exquisite. And when you see pictures like this, you don't realise how actually small they are. But some of us went further down, took an extra extension to the trip, and we found this lovely Fabiana australis, Petunia patagonica. And literally one location on the side of the road, there was just hundreds of plants, great big ones. And I thought I ought to show, if we're at NARGS, we ought to show our president or your president. So, so this is Todd Boland, of course, who's on a lecture tour in Canada at the moment. And this is the scarlet gorse that's looking beautiful. And it's just to prove that, So Todd and I, we're very lucky. We lead quite a lot of the tours for NARGS and get to go and show people beautiful plants. I got told to remind everybody that it's Calvary next year, and the AGM is going to be up there, and it's going to be brilliant. There's a really good selection of speakers. It's on the website. Tony, who's there? Oh no, it's just about to come on, and it will come on for buying in January, he said. And if you're interested in tours, there's 2 new tours going online at the end of the month to Morocco and to Crete. I have to remember. Got my instructions I had to do. Scarlet gorse close-up one of it. And just, I got told to do 45 minutes, and I'm just about on that, and that's what I'd like to finish my picture on. And I hope the pictures work. From my angle, the pictures don't look right, and I just wish you could have seen the pictures here. But that's what I'd like to finish on my sunset. Thank you very much.